ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। Maybe we can chant it together. कटाक्षकिरणाचान्त नमन्मोहाब्धये नमः। अनन्तानन्दकृष्णाय जगन्मङ्गलमूर्तये। Repeat after me. अहमस्मि सदा भामि। Repeat after me. Repeat after me. Repeat after me. Ahamasmi sada bhami. Kadachinaham apriyah. Brahmaivahamata siddham. सच्चिदानन्दलक्षणम्। अहमस्मि I exist. All that which seems to exist but has the nature of perishing, I am not. Balyadishvapi, we are born, then there is Balyavastha, then there is Kaumaryavastha, then there is Yuvavastha, then there is Praudhavastha, adult. Probably that is where we get the word proud. And then Vruddhapya, Vardhakya. All these changes happen, but they come and go. I am not something that comes and goes. I persist. I exist. I exist changelessly. Aham asmi. Aham asmi also can be taken. Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti. These also change. But I continue to persist. So wherever there are changes that happen, I, the changeless existence, that which persists, and it is my svanubhuti. It is my experience. Scriptures can be quoted later as a pramana, but before that, my own subjective experience is the pramana. I don't need any other pramana for my existence. I exist, and all that which changes is not me. Because I am the changeless. aham bhami sada. And the word sada is very beautifully implied here. It is for all the three, one word sada has to be constantly added in. Aham sada asmi, aham sada bhami. I am constantly conscious, illumining. Now, all the earlier examples taken are that which are of the nature of inertness. I take a pen, I take a paper, I start scribing, I start writing something. It is not that the pen has its own mind and I am directing it. I have to be the one that is conscious of how that instrument is being used. It by itself cannot. Suddenly the pen doesn't start dancing because Swami ji आपने आपके दिल के पास लगा लिया. No. Whether it is in the pocket, it doesn't recognize. Whether it is in the pen stand, it doesn't recognize. It falls off into the mud, it doesn't recognize. It is inert by nature. It is me, the conscious principle, that has to guide it so that there is something tangible written through it. Therefore, I am scared of this self-driven automated cars. Either consciousness has to sit and guide that vehicle in spite of the chaos and the craziness that which we call as traffic, to safely reach from point A to point B. It cannot suddenly have a mind of its own. Nowadays they are adding those self-calculating systems into the car. They call it as ADAS, where it reads, it calculates what is the vehicle in front, how fast is it approaching, how fast you are approaching it, and then automatically it starts braking. Or if there is a lane divider or lane marking, then it pulls you back into the lane. And if you are driving a little random, there are some cars, then it will say, do you want to have a break? But there are some systems wherein they imply that, but they put it on a timer. If you have driven for 3 hours, 4 hours, after every 3 hours it keeps reminding, have a coffee break. So I start having a dialogue with my car. I said, you are being partial. Because I like chai. Why not a chai break? It doesn't have the intelligence to respond back. It is automated. But still there needs to be an intelligence that has to use it. There has to be that conscious being that can seemingly enliven that instrument to function in that particular field. So are the organs of action, perception, mind, intellect. If we are really consciously working through these layers and utilizing them for loka kalyana, for the benefit, if we are really conscious, is there a scope for regrets? Is there a scope for sorry? I have said something and it has hurt somebody, and then I end up cutting a sorry figure and say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. I do something and then I regret. Meaning I was not being conscious. The simple sadhana is, if anything expressing through me unto the world ends up in regrets, guilt, that means I have not lived consciously. I have strayed away from this conscious being. That is why he calls it in the very beginning as mohabdi. Delusionally we adapt to being the instrument rather than functioning through the instrument. What a world of difference. That I am not the instrument, I am the one who has to be intelligently using the instrument and then regret having used it. That means I was not being conscious. So if there is a life filled with regrets and guilt, that means it was not a conscious life. So what should be the sadhana then? Alert and vigilant. And Gurudev hammers that word so many times. Awake, alert, vigilant. These three words, how often do we see that he is repeating? From what standpoint? Not from the intellectual standpoint. Intellect also is an instrument. The conscious being, independent of all of these instruments, has to function through that instruments. So the instruments have to be in line with that conscious principle which is enlivening it. Aham sada bhami. Because they are inert. How can the inert take over that which is sentient, that which is conscious, and create a havoc? When even if vaguely we understand these principles, can any emotion of ours take over and say, I lost it? The moment I say I lost it, see, anger is not the problem. I can employ anger whenever required. But it has to be something which is employed by me. I am not dancing to its tunes. Sometimes you have to use anger. Raise your voice. Show that firmness and sternness and express. Because sometimes the words penetrate across through the thick, whatever illogical approach has to be penetrated through, you may have to use it, but it should be something which is in your control, and as an expression you use it. But we get used by the emotions, meaning I am not being conscious, I am not being alert, I am not being vigilant. To that matter, any thought, any variation can exist and express only if I, the conscious existence, has permitted it to exist, permitted it to express. Otherwise, what kind of a sadhaka I am? Again and again the same mistakes. How can it be validated? How can you look at yourself and say, it was okay? I said sorry, now it is okay. No, it is not okay if you are a sadhaka. Otherwise, what is the difference between being a sadhaka of understanding the Vedantic principles but no application? If I say I am independent, I am that conscious existential principle, and the instruments are the one that depend on me, the instruments are inert, I am the conscious principle that is enlivening those things, how can they take over? Whether it is a thought, whether it is an idea, whether it is an emotion, whether it is an act, even if that act be reflex action. It has to be something which is expressing as the permission given by that conscious principle, that which I am, therefore the expression. Not the other way around, that I express and then, I now recognize it. Posthumous reality is not a sadhaka jivana. Maybe a beginning of sadhaka jivana. That at least I have started recognizing where I am going wrong. But a true sadhaka has to express, because I am that conscious principle, and anything that expresses is expressing through the layers of inertness. Therefore, the inertness does not have the capacity to do whatever it feels like. It has to be ordained and blessed by that conscious principle to express that way. Therefore, the karma principle is so meticulous that it feels merciless, that there is no scope. Whether you do it intentionally or unintentionally, consciously, unconsciously, being careful or careless, doesn't matter. It has its repercussions. Because you are the conscious principle, therefore you cannot afford to say, oops, I did it again. Do you understand the depth of the sadhana? Aham asmi sada, aham sada bhami, kadachin na aham apriyaha. I am the source of my own liking. I have never disliked myself, because self is of the nature that which gives absolute bliss. Therefore the liking. And this concept is being ruined by the life coaches, the self-help gurus. Love yourself. Pampering is not called loving. What kind of ruinous concept are we getting into? Self-love, because the nature of self is of the nature of love. It is not meaning to say that you have to pamper your body, that is called self-love. You have to pamper your emotions, therefore it is called self-love. You have to pamper your inadequacies. Accept them, recognize them. Pampering them thou shalt not. That is not called self-love. That is called adjustment. Because the nature of self is of the nature of love, therefore I like myself the most, though what I end up liking is the body, mind and intellect, which is inert in nature, which cannot exist without me, the existential principle. Whatever it is required that for that vehicle, for that instrument to function. Yesterday the mic was not functioning. What was it requiring? It was requiring battery. Fill it, shut it, forget it. Done. Similarly, this body requires every 4 hours, 5 hours once bhaksham, bhojyam, lehyam, choshyam, some kind of a thing that has to be provided for it. Fill it, shut it, forget it, done. Whole life we spend only on pampering that. What kind of cloth, what kind of material, what kind of this, what kind of food, what kind of... How does it matter? Really, once you knock yourself out, there is deep sleep. Does it matter what kind of bed you are sleeping on? When you are really tired, don't you end up sleeping in the most uncomfortable things like a chair? Even during satsang? What are we talking about a comfort? Self-love. Self-love, don't ridicule it by saying that I have to pamper the body, mind and intellect. Kadachin na aham apriyaha. This is called the Swarupa Lakshana. This is the very nature of Brahman, therefore I am Brahman. Atah swayam siddhaha. Why does it look complicated? Because we are trying to understand this being the instruments. Dehoham bhutva, manoham bhutva, buddhyoham bhutva, brahma tattvam parichakshayami. Being that body, mind and intellect, I am trying to ascertain that I am Brahman. Therefore, there is a friction in the logic. Though I have heard it millions of times, manaha naham, buddhi naham, shariram naham, it is only at the intellectual weight called data. That data has not transformed into wisdom. Even at that state where Tapovan Maharaj, basking in the highest glory, in his last stages, when he was leaning on the wall, this is as said by Gurudev. He was also there, it seems. He was leaning on the wall talking to those who had come, who had to inquire about his health. Somebody brought in a little gadda, a pillow, to comfort him on the harsh wall, mud wall. Then he kept it aside and moved forward and sat straight. And they all felt bad that at least he was leaning on the wall, now we have made him not to lean on the wall. And his only standpoint was, no, Sharira does not need to be pampered. No comfort zone given to it. Because that is the conviction with which the abhyasa has to be done. But our abhyasa starts with the conviction that I am still this body, mind and intellect. On one side it is being said that the world is mere projection, but then we want Vedanta in practical application. Practical application, what we end up meaning is, being this body, mind and intellect, how can I apply it? There starts the problem. At least as a conviction, that conviction has to change. Replacing the older conviction that I am this body, mind and intellect, that I am not this body, mind and intellect has to be very firm, because that is a dependable variable. It has so many modifications. I, the existence, does not entertain any modification. I, the consciousness, cannot afford any inertness. I, the Ananda principle, cannot express anything but love. You may not want something, but cannot afford to be hating anything in world. You may not require it, but does it mean that you end up disliking it and then ending up hating it? Yesterday I just explained the principle. Today I am talking about the implications of that principle. This is called Swarupa Lakshana. the nature of the self. And how should I be practicing that nature of self? First, reroute the entire conviction that these are only instruments. Yesterday I had said, we say, I am getting old, I am frustrated, I am sharp. All of these are attributes of the body, mind and intellect. What is actually getting old? Not the existence, not the conscious principle, not the Ananda Tattva. It is a body that is getting old. Why do we attribute it on the I am? Instead replace, say, the body is getting old. The conviction is reascertained. I am getting frustrated, instead replace, my mind is agitated, my mind is frustrated. The moment I distance, the conviction is an application that I, the owner, has the owned, which is called a mind, which is now in an agitated condition, thereby it is releasing the fumes of irritation or frustration. Just like when the engine has to have some inner cleaning, but you have not taken it for that constant, monthly or servicing. So when you turn the engine on, fumes come out. You don't end up saying that I am fuming. Similarly, the mind is fuming, fine. But I am fuming is wrong. I, the conscious principle, cannot fume. It feels enlivened because it is borrowing that I amness from that conscious principle, and therefore it is acting the way it is acting. So acknowledge it, yes, there are fumes. But I am fuming is wrong. And the most amazing part is, the moment you distance from it, you disconnect from it, it does not have the capacity to run forward. It may trickle down because of the momentum, but that's about it. It loses its vigor. How do I control my anger? Disconnect. How do I disconnect? It becomes disconnecting at that moment becomes difficult, because this understanding has to be applied during the normal phase, wherein when the mind is agitated, it can kick in at that point. Therefore, the manana has to be very, very strong, that I can distance it immediately, that I am not this instrument. It is borrowing that existential principle, conscious principle from me, the conscious being. Therefore, I distance. The moment I distance, there is a disconnect, therefore it cannot run further. Ahamasmi sadabhami kadhachinnaham apriyah brahmaivaham atasiddham satchidananda lakshanam. So this is the Swarupa Lakshana. When we talk about the Lakshana, to understand the Lakshana, there are three Lakshanas which we mention. Vyavartaka Lakshana, Tatastha Lakshana and Swarupa Lakshana. Vyavartaka Lakshana is to tell all that which changes, that which I am not. All that which perishes, that which I am not. All that which has an MFG and EXP, manufacturing date and an expiration date. We all have a DOB, we have a certainty of DOD, date of birth, date of death. I think one of these universities or colleges that I visited, they have all the earlier, the past chancellors, vice chancellors, or the whatever, whoever was running the institution. So they have, I think, 2 sets of dates. From what period to what period did they hold the post, and then what was their date of birth and date of death. I didn't laugh there, it would look very horrible. There are those who are immediate past holders of that post. They have relinquished this post, so they have that, those dates are given of what tenure they were in that position, and then DOB is given, and then DOD is written, and then it is black. इधर तुम टपको, इधर हम लिखेंगे. But that is the naked truth of life. Vedanta even in there. So all these that changes. Even the entire Neti Neti Marga comes under the Vyavartaka Lakshana. Swarupa Lakshana we have seen that this is Brahman's Swarupa, this is the Atma Swarupa, therefore I am that Brahman, that oneness is established. Now Tatastha Lakshana. Tatastha Lakshana is not the Lakshana of the Vastu that you are trying to point, but through something else which is quite temporary, but through that temporariness in that situation you apply it to recognize it. So I go out, some of you are right from around. So I ask, which house do you, where do you live? So they show that corner. Which one of those, several rows of houses? Immediately they check and say, you see that crow? That house on which the crow is right now, that house is where I live. It does not mean that wherever the crow is, that house is yours. If that will shift. And the moment it shifts, it doesn't mean that that house becomes yours. That was only a temporary reference. So the next set of shloka, because when the Shruti says that you have drawn the parallel saying it is Satchidananda Swarupa, therefore I am also Satchidananda Swarupa, therefore I am Brahman is established. But then the scriptures also say that Brahman is the very Adhara, being the omniscient of this entire creation. Now how do you end up proving that? So the Tatastha Lakshana is taken to discussion. Because first sentence, Swarupa Lakshana, you have proved. Okay, given, accepted. Still mulling over it. That is logical, it appears. Therefore, I accept. But then how do you prove that? Because Brahman also is stated as the very Adhara for this entire creation of multitude. Now you have to prove that this Atma Chaitanya also is the Adhara for this entire multitude. Therefore now try proving that this Atma Chaitanya is verily that Brahman, even through this Tatastha Lakshana. With respect to all this multitude that which is called creation. Is this supposition understood? One more time. Okay. So the scriptures say that Brahma Tattva, Brahma conscious principle, Parabrahma Tattva, is the very substratum which is expressing as this entire creation. So this creation is projected on that substratum, as without that there can be no creation substantiated. So that is called Brahman, which is the adhara of this entire creation. Now if that is the nature of Brahman, earlier you said in the earlier shloka that Brahman is Satchidananda Swarupa, I am Satchidananda Swarupa, therefore I am Brahman. Okay, point taken. Now Brahman is the adhara for this multitude called creation. Now prove that this Atma Chaitanya also is the adhara for this entire creation, therefore I can equate and say that this Atma Chaitanya is Brahma Tattva. So through that Tatastha Lakshana, now prove that Atma Chaitanya is that adhara. Clear? If the stipulation is understood, then the shloka can be easily understood. Now the third shloka, repeat after me. Mayyevodeti cidvyomni jagadgandharvapattanam ato'haṃ na kathaṃ brahma sarvajñaṃ sarvakāraṇam. I love the way he in every shloka says ato'haṃ na kathaṃ brahma. Therefore, how can I be nothing other than that Brahman? He is not trying to say, therefore, please try to understand that you are Brahman. How can you not be Brahman, man? And this set of shlokas called Advaita Makaranda, it whips our intellect at every turn, at every twist. So what is it that he is trying to explain? We say through various scriptures that from that Brahma Tattva Udeti, this entire creation is expressing forth. So the sequence that is explained, there are various sequences explained. Okay. One more pointer before we get into the shloka. Mark it down somewhere. Very, very important point. Wherever this Tatastha Lakshana of creation is explained, we are not trying to be scientists of the material world, trying to prove the creation. That is not the purpose. Wherever the Tatastha Lakshana of creation is mentioned as a logic of understanding, the purpose of the scripture to introduce this is not to prove that there is a creation. That is not the purpose. What is the purpose? The purpose is to prove that I, the conscious principle, is the very substratum, and therefore I am Brahman. That is the only purpose to take this set of logic. Otherwise, we unnecessarily fall into the trap of trying to prove everything scientific. Not that the scriptures have anything against science. Science is of the material world. That material world which is a projected reality. And through that you want to prove this, it is impossible. And yet, whatever the scripture says in reference is in complete attunement. But trying to go through that scientific method to prove that this is right is the wrong method. Therefore, don't get entrapped into that. It is okay in a Yuva Kendra class to highlight few things which the scripture have stated to entice that mind, to enthuse that mind, to say, Arre wah, even our scriptures have been so scientific. But the purpose is, when the scripture is saying, is not to prove that the creation is real. That is not the purpose at all. Am I getting across? Again, the Vedantic scriptures have nothing against science. In fact, I think it was Vivekananda who says, we have nothing against science, but that where science ends, our spiritual world begins from there. It is including it, but through that science trying to prove, which is where many people get entrapped, that they now feel like a feather on their cap to try saying that everything that we do is scientific. काहे फंसते हो उसमें? There is an age and time to put that across for the younger minds so that they see the logic of it. But that's about it. Now let us come to the shloka. The Upanishadic mantras, what they say in Taittiriya Upanishad specifically, Sa Ekaha. He is one without a second. Bahusyam prajayeti. He entertained a thought. May I become many. The moment that thought ruptured, that very identification to that thought rupture, Brahman is now called as Ishvara. Ishvara is endowed with that Shakti which is trifurcated. There are three parts to it, three limbs to it. The first is called Ichha Shakti. The second is Jnana Shakti. I mean, the sequence is very, very important here. The first is Ichha Shakti. The second is Jnana Shakti. Then comes Kriya Shakti. So the difference between the Jiva and Ishvara is sequential order, Jiva is sequential disorder. That is why I said sequence is very important. Who is Jiva? Jiva कौन? जो पहले करे बाद में सोचे. Isn't that what we all do? As soon as there is Ichha Shakti, we also have all these three Shaktis. But as soon as we have Ichha Shakti, we jump into action and posthumously realize, I should have done it this way. Jnana Shakti udayeti later. So as soon as he had this thought, Bahusyam prajayeti. Satapotapyata, that Ishvara did a very long, sincere tapas. Satapotapyata. This was Jnanamaya tapas. Satapotapyata. Satapastaptva, having attained that oneness with the knowledge. With that knowledge, with the know-how, he started expressing. The Kriya expressed. And in this phase, that Ishvara now identified with the blueprint in his envisioning is technically called Hiranyagarbha, which we very loosely translate as the golden womb. Now, the womb, because it is the space of opportunities to express. The golden womb of opportunities to express into multitude. It is not yet expressed, but it is envisioned. Now, as I am speaking, each one of you is anticipatorily looking forward for what would be my next logic, what would be my next word in the sentence. That person is not here. He loudly says it out. Each one of us anticipated, but you have not yet expressed it. In that phase, you are also in the hiranyagarbha sthiti of that sentence. But then, when you express it and match, when I am also saying this, I also thought so. That vyakta becomes the virata. This thought is very fresh because I just spoke on Purusha Sukta. Satapotapyata satapastatva idagam sarvam asrajata. Idagam sarvam asrajata. This entire creation came forth into being. First at the totality called the virata, and in that virata, that Ishvara expressing as virata has his Maya Shakti in his absolute control. Therefore, there is a sequential order of Ichha Shakti followed by Jnana Shakti followed by Kriya Shakti. Now the individuality started getting created. Now individuality, as soon as it came into being, it is that same Ishvara who is expressing as this entire creation, identified at each individual level. That Maya Shakti is now become avidya. And from that avidya, at our individual status, kama, karma, vasana and karma become the unending loop that which we are entrapped in. Now, if we understand this, we have to become suddenly Chinese. Why? Anything that which is produced, they can reverse engineer it. So if there is a production of iPhone, they can reverse engineer it and produce their own fake. So we also now have to learn how to reverse engineer it. Where are we? In avidya kama karma. Lessen the pressure of kama and karma. Totally eradicating it, not possible. Am I getting across? Totally eradicating it as the initial beginning seeker is not possible. That is not the effort. But instill karma yoga bhava in through every aspect of life. The kama, karma, vasana, karma, chakra, the pressure is lessened. When the pressure is lessened, the antakarana is more available, so that it can focus. Because our problem is not kama and karma. Though intrinsically at this point of time that is the most vehement thing that which we are facing. Therefore, what is the method? The method given is reduce that pressure to as minimal as possible. Okay, I will also put one more sentence in for further clarity. How do we reduce it? Through the karma yoga bhava, wherein you reach to a point to understand that creating newer patterns of anticipations are not required. Just facing what is unfolding as prarabdha, that much you can handle, that much is sufficient. We don't have to create newer patterns. Whatever is already unfolding as our prarabdha, equip yourself to face it without kartrutva and bhoktrutva. That is how you reduce the pressure. Now the antakarana with less amount of pressure is more available for what? To tackle the root cause of the problem. What is the root cause of the problem? Kama and karma are not the root cause, they are the branches. How long will you keep tackling at the branches level? It is just like those crevices in the ashram property. You see these plants which have taken root. You keep plucking those branches, one small little rain, little moisture, again it will sprout up. Why? The root has not been catered to. But in the name of sadhana, where do we get stuck? In trying to be good, in trying to do good, that is where we get stuck. That is not the end goal. That is just via media to reduce the pressure. Now the antakarana is available for what? To tackle the root cause, which is avidya, thereby focus is on vidya. And where do we ascertain that vidya? Through the Shravana process is where Jnana is ascertained. Pramana through the Shastra. So what is our GPS? Guru Prokta Shastra, GPS. That is our indicator. So when that jnana is given the opportunity with the lessened pressure of the antakarana, then manana begins. We start tackling the root cause of avidya. Now here, the karma yoga principle of reducing it by percentages is okay. And Gurudev puts it, 30% sattvic, 30% rajasic, 40% tamasic. Now start converting it to majorly transforming it into sattvic. Very little of rajasic, very little of tamasic. That can happen in percentages. In vidya and avidya there is no percentages. Either it is 100% or there is 0%. The example taken is when you see the snake on the rope, mind is agitated. A passerby throws some light, and in that light you investigate only to find to your relief that it is only a rope. The moment you see the rope, what happens to the snake? See, when you say disappear, you are giving validity to its appearance. You come to understand that it never existed. Now, when you come to understand that it never existed, do you still have a doubt? The visible part which I am able to see is now a rope. Maybe the other end which is still in the bushes, maybe it is still snake. Either it is rope or it is a snake. There is no percentages in between there. Either the understanding is 100% or it is 0. Am I being clear? Because otherwise we keep talking about आप तो पहुंचे हुए साधक है. क्या पहुंचना भाई? Either we are dumb or we are realized. There is no percentages in between. Either I know or I don't. We should not wear an unnecessary layer here of pauncha hua sadhak. Just because you have spent that many number of years doesn't have any credibility about knowing or unknowing. Either you are or you are not. What number of years? Number of lives doesn't matter. पहुंचे कि नहीं पहुंचे बस. Have we understood it? Have we not understood it? Is it known or unknown? That point has to be very clear. Otherwise we fall in trap. 10 people start praising you that aap paunche hue sadhako, then we start wearing that. Just because now you are more authentic sounding, because now you have learned the vocabulary of Vedanta. That means 0. Just because you are now equipped with Vedantic vocabulary and now you can organize the entire thought logically, does not mean anything. Do you know or do you not know? There are no percentages there. I am half realized. Either you are fooling yourself or fooling others, or knowingly that I am not but still a fool. So both. That is not being truthful. That is not being honest to one's own self. Either I am or I am not. Therefore, in this step of manana, where that jnana is being, that opportunity is being provided, there this tatastha lakshana to understand how am I being that substratum. For this Brahma Tattva is the substratum on which this entire thing is projected. Where is the possibility of a snake? When we say the example of snake and the rope, the example that you have chosen is wrong. There is no snake and the rope. It is only possible when it is snake on the rope. If there is a snake which is intertwined with the rope, you have to realize both of them are there. With half-baked Vedanta, you cannot say, oh, I have realized rope, so snake is not there. No, if it is snake and rope, both are real. If alone it is snake on the rope, it can be understood as unreal the moment the light of wisdom dawns in that scenario. Snakeness is understood as non-existent. It was never existent. Momentarily, my mind projected it. And that projection has ceased to be. Is this much understood? We'll continue this Tatastha Lakshana tomorrow. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayaha, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet, Asato Ma Sadgamaya, Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityor Ma Amritangamaya. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.